Good morning and welcome to Morning Meditation. I am Pastor Phil and we're at my favorite bench just outside the doors here at St. Paul's. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here with us today. Good morning, I'm Pastor Phil. This is Morning Meditation, and today we're going to be continuing on looking at the book of Galatians. We're going to be checking out Galatians chapter 4, beginning with the 21st verse. It reads, "Tell me, you who want to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the bondwoman and one by the free woman. But the son of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and the son of the free woman through the promise. This is allegorically speaking, for these women are two covenants, one proceeding from Mount Sinai, bearing children who are to be slaves. She's Hagar. Now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children." Following our kind of July 4th theme here, with Monday having been July 5th and, having celebrated July 4th on Sunday, we hear Paul beginning to develop inside of this discussion the idea of slavery versus free. And slavery is something that in our current world we'll decry and we'll say it's not okay. But we don't see slavery for being everything that it is. Slavery will be spoken of in incredibly narrow terms, in that it's only the owning of another person. But we can be enslaved to all kinds of other things. Any addiction is an enslavement, which from that perspective means that we in ourselves can be a slave to drugs, to alcohol, to any kind of substance abuse, to sex, to television, to technology. The list is virtually endless. But what we hear being built up is the idea of slavery in terms of the spiritual, in terms of Jesus Christ and the Bible, becomes one of being entangled with our enemies, with sin, death, and the devil. And what we hear inside of this portion of Galatians is that Paul makes this understanding between Hagar and between Sarah. Hagar was Abraham's concubine, by which he had Ishmael, who became the father of the Arab nations. Now, on the other hand, he also had Sarah, who was his wife, who was the mother of Isaac, who became the line of the Jews, in which Jesus came from. But what we can do when we go all the way back and look at the story of what's going on here, we see that Abraham and Sarah had a plan to fulfill a promise that God had made, but instead of waiting on God, they did it their way. They were enslaved to their sin. They weren't willing to wait upon the Lord. And as they weren't willing to wait, they created lots of problems for themselves, and then for future generations, they've created lots of problems. So what I want to ask you about and ask you to contemplate as we live in this world, in the here and the now, what are you enslaved to? What's the thing that is holding you back? Where is it that you're not following the command of Jesus Christ to follow Him, but instead you're holding that thing to yourself, saying, this is mine and I'm going to do it my way? Holding that thing makes us a slave to sin and hinders the work of God in our lives. Now, that doesn't mean that the Spirit of God cannot work in your life. Rather, the Spirit of God is free to move and to work as it desires. But what we can do is create hesitations, problems as we move forward in our life, realizing that we're hanging on to that thing that we're enslaved to. We're either freed in Christ or a slave to sin. There's no in-between ground. Jesus doesn't make space for it inside of the Gospels, and Paul doesn't make space for it for us here. So as we go forward into your week, I pray that God blesses you and that you see that place where you're trying to hold the thing back that could make you a slave to sin instead of living in the freedom that Christ has won us in the cross. I pray that God blesses you and that as you make these contemplations, that the peace of God dwells upon you. Go in peace, and we'll see you tomorrow.